President Obama has now wrapped up his tour of Africa with a two-day visit to Ethiopia, the first ever by a U.S. president. And who would have thought that in only 3 decades, this East African nation could have gone from dire poverty and the worst famine in living memory, which left 1 million of its people dead, to one of the fastest-growing economies in the world and a key partner in the fight against Islamic militants in the area. But all of this growth and security comes at the expense of freedom and civil society. Critics call the government repressive. And addressing the African Union for the very first time at its Addis Ababa headquarters, the American president encouraged all his African counterparts to keep marching towards democracy.
Democratic progress is also at risk when leaders refuse to step aside when their terms end. Now, let me be honest with you. I do not understand this. I actually think I'm a pretty good president. I think if I ran, I could win. But I can't.
And after that speech, Ethiopia's Foreign Minister Tedros Adhanom joined me exclusively from the capital with some surprising assessments of his own. Foreign Minister Tedros, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Christian, for having me.
Tell me what it means to you, to the government, to all Ethiopians that this is the first time a sitting American president has visited your country.
Yes, as you know, our relationship with the U.S. is a very historic and strong one. We're very, very happy that President Obama is the first president to visit us, and we believe, and our people believe, that this visit will further strengthen the relationship, the already existing strong relationship between the U.S. and Ethiopia.
Foreign Minister, the President praised your very fast-growing economy. He praised Ethiopia's very strong fight against terrorism, along with the United States. He also talked about moving closer and further towards democracy. He said that in private, he doesn't pull his punches, he doesn't bite his tongue when he's mentioning these things. Did you hear that message? Was the government, was the Prime Minister, yourself, able to talk to him about when you might speed up civil society, more freedoms for journalists and other such activists?
He said that, I will suggest some things as a friend and as a partner. So, of course, there could be advice from a friend and a partner, just suggestions. And as you know, on democracy and human rights, our democracy is a nascent one, and there are many areas that we need to strengthen. So, the suggestions or some comments you get from friends and partners is taken positively. For us, democracy is a must because we're a very diverse country. And to keep the unity of our country, we believe that democracy is a must. And we build it over time. As you know, for democracy, you need institutions, you need tradition, changes in tradition and culture, you need education, literacy. It's all this, which really matures, taking its own course, that really brings mature democracy. And we're committed, and we're doing that. We know the challenges we have, we know the setbacks we have, and we have identified them ourselves, and we're working on that. And the suggestions as a friend and partner that came from President Obama, we take it seriously.
Well, Mr. Foreign Minister, that is a very full answer, and you have said a lot of the right things. So let me ask you this. In the last elections, just in May, your party won every single seat, more than 500 seats in the parliament. In other words, you won 100% of the vote. Even the U.S. National Security Advisor, your close ally, didn't take that seriously. Explain how you will work on your democracy to enable opposition, legitimate opposition, to have a fighting chance in civil society.
No, from the polling stations that we have competed, we didn't lose. But we haven't won all the 547 seats. Some of them were won by other parties. Although They are friendly to us, but they're not the same party. The opposition is divided. For instance, in one polling station, 11 opposition parties compete against one party. But when I say this, it doesn't mean that there are no challenges, especially in terms of what you said, something that we need to improve. And we can assess the situation and see if there is something that we can fix. And we would be happy to listen to the opposition. As I said earlier, it's a nascent democracy and in the making. So there are many things that we can improve.
Foreign Minister, as you know, many people in the democratic world look also at the treatment of journalists, and your record has not been good. And President Obama said Ethiopia cannot unleash the full potential of its people if it jails journalists and restricts legitimate opposition groups. So yes, you have released about 5 or so bloggers before the president arrived. Can you assure us and the other journalists that they will be released?
First of all, what I would like to say is we haven't jailed any journalist because he or she is a journalist. We follow our rules. The rule of law is important for everything, for democracy, for development, and so on. So nobody can be above the law, whether he or she is a journalist, a politician, a lawyer, or whatever. So when they trespass the rule of the country, they will be in trouble. Otherwise, if they respect the rules of the country, nobody can touch them. But as I said earlier, our institutions, especially democratic institutions, are still young, and there could be areas that need improvement. And during the discussion between President Obama and our Prime Minister, what we have acknowledged is that there are weaknesses that we need to sort in the future.
Most democratic societies would agree with you, but the problem is the journalists say, and so do human rights agree, that in fact you use this idea of collaborating with terrorists or violating the laws when in fact they're just trying to maybe criticize the government or root out corruption, as has happened with one young journalist who explained to us why they were arrested. Just listen for a moment.
Most of the journalists in jail are critical. They write stories about what is going on in the country, and most of them are claiming for rule of law, transparency, accountability. I'm not a terrorist. I write stories.
So, Foreign Minister, you would agree, as you said, that you need to go further in protecting these kinds of activities, as the president asked for, and in bolstering Ethiopia's respect for basic human rights in this regard.
On being critical in jail, no, that's, as we speak, I can give you many examples, newspapers and so on, who are very critical of the government. That cannot be a problem, and that should not be a problem. The problem is when they trespass a law. As I said earlier, I cannot go into details, but there were evidences that they were not respecting the rules and the laws of the country. So that's the only thing that can land them into jail. Otherwise, being critical, we need it because it's feedback even for us. And we can learn from what they're saying, the concerns. What they say is could be the concern of our people. Media is the eyes and ears of the people. If it's ethical and also follows the rules. As I said earlier, democracy, which is really being built. So we need to see if there is anything that we are screwing up in what you said.
Did you ask Mr. Obama whether the United States would step up its investment? I mean, obviously China is vastly outspending and outinvesting the United States, not only in your country, but across Africa.
As I said earlier, Ethiopia and the United States have a very long and historic relationship, more than 100 years ago. And we have good partnership on development finance, on development issues, on peace and security, and so on. But if you see the trade and investment, it's not as really good as one would expect, and considering the long partnership we have. And that was where our focus of discussion was. And the visit of the president also will be very important in motivating the U.S. Investors to come and invest in Ethiopia. But he has promised to do his best, and he even said that was the reason why he is in Ethiopia, especially to boost trade and investment. By the way, this is not just opportunity for Ethiopia alone. It's opportunity for the U.S. also.
Foreign Minister Tedros, thank you so much for joining us from Addis Ababa.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much indeed.